Hi, everybody. Zaid here. Um, I want to start a series of live streams where part of it is a content creation process for myself. I tend to work better when I'm working live with people. And since there's nobody up, it's 10 around 10:45 right now. Um, I'm just gonna work live stream on live stream so everybody can see how I operate. And the series I thought about doing is how you can create everything in short periods of time. And there's a couple big ideas that I want to pass on to you guys that come from the different things in my life, that come from psychology, that come from design and user experience, that come from direct response. And honestly, a lot of stuff that just comes from the ether, from like intuition and from experience and doing things that I didn't know what I was doing at the time. And then in hindsight, ended up being genius, right? And that's how it always is. So tonight, I want to focus on graphic design. That's one out of around 20 or 30 different things I want to show you how you can build, how you can create in your life with very little money and no experience. Okay, to give you some context, I'm going to show you everything else I'm going to help you create in short periods of time. Let's look at my little list. I have this, actually, it's a big list, and I put it into categories. We have events, we have creative projects, groups, career shifts. There's graphic design right there. See, graphic design, physical spaces, health, and retail, e-commerce. We often think, well, I can't do that. I don't have X, or I don't know how to, and you fill in the blank. I don't have this thing. I don't have resources. I don't have money. I don't have skills. I don't have experience. I don't have people to help me. I don't know how. And what we miss is that things become created as you work on them. And you don't always have to know anything. That anything in its genesis, when it first gets created, comes from nothing. There's a point where you had nothing and then you had something, right? So, how do we go from nothing to something in a very short period of time? I'm going to start with graphic design, okay? And I'm going to part as I build this mind map out. You're going to watch me build this out live. I'm going to build this out live and we are going to create. So, create with me, all right? All right. So, a little background. I didn't know what graphic design actually was until I saw it. Now, I had seen it in all of the music CDs, music CD jackets, album covers, posters, rave flyers, right? TV shows, those opening titles for TV shows, movie posters. We see graphic design everywhere, right? And there's a blindness there where things can be everywhere, and because you aren't aware of it, it goes right past your head, right? So I remember when I was in college and I was in a club and we were going to the college marketing department to get a flyer made, and I saw a guy working in Adobe Photoshop, and it's like a light clicked in my head and I said, hey, what is that? What are you doing? And he said, "Oh, this is Photoshop." And I realized that's how all this stuff gets made. All the, all the music that I was collecting, mostly album covers and CD covers and the jackets I look through on my bed as I'm listening to music, right? So there's a point where something enters your awareness. And after that, I was obsessed with graphic design. So before I knew any principles, before I actually had done any graphic design, I was unconsciously creating my graphic design career. So what was I doing? So one thing I was doing was I was going to the college library and looking at like searching. And back then there's no Google, right? There's just Netscape and there's individual sites. So I turn to the most obvious, the closest thing to me in terms of graphic design, the agency that made a lot of the album covers that I was looking at. So I email that agency and I say, "How do you do that? I want to do that. How do you make these beautiful album covers?" And the person got back to me. His name was John Black. He got back to me and he said, "Get yourself a Mac and get," I think he said, "Photoshop and freehand." And that's it, right? He didn't say, "Oh, well, you have to go to graphic design school," or, "Oh, well, you have to get some job experience." He just said, "Get the tools and just start playing around." Right? In reality, I could have just started playing around with paper, which is what I actually did. So the first thing I did was reach out, reach out to graphic designers, right? Then I started imagining myself as a graphic designer, and I started sketching out designs that I would do for like books and albums that I already had. So I would say, well, if I did this design, this how I would do it, and I would sometimes write notes, and sometimes I would sketch it, not knowing how to sketch, right? Not knowing what I didn't know. That's very powerful, very, very powerful skill is not knowing what you don't know because you don't know what you're not supposed to do, right? You don't know what you should not do yet. Okay. Reaching out to graphic designers, imagining myself as a graphic designer, right? So call yourself whatever you want to be right now. If you want to be an aerospace engineer, go on LinkedIn and call yourself an aerospace engineer right now. When people when people ask you what you do, you say, "I'm an aerospace engineer," or in our case, "I'm a graphic designer." Do you have to say that? No. Do you have to ask in the works? No. Do you have to have any of the tools? Imagine this. Imagine this. 10 years into the future, you are a graphic designer. Okay. Say your apartment, your house burns down. All of your equipment is gone. All your work is on disk or it's on your computer and it's gone. You didn't use iCloud. It's gone. Are you still a graphic designer? Let's say your degree burns up. Are you still a graphic designer? Let's say you get a bachelor's in mm, fine art or something, right? A design related discipline. And the college that you studied at goes out of business. Are you still a graphic designer? Maybe your degree is defunct. Are you still a graphic designer? Yes. Well, if that's the case, that's the same thing as me saying that. It's the same thing, right? So, an idea, let's make a section called concepts. Is that what I declare myself to be is independent, eh, dependent of, let's see, external circumstances. Another example, a firefighter is a firefighter whether or not they have a fire truck, a fire engine, a firehouse, whether or not they have a job as a firefighter, say they get laid off. They're a firefighter. That's their trade. That's their discipline. That's the thing that they do. That's their thing, right? Regardless of these external circumstances, right? So that's an important concept. I'm gonna give this to you guys. Anybody who is listening or is listening to the replay, um, just go ahead and ping me on LinkedIn, and I'll shoot you like a PDF copy. Okay. All right. So I am imagining myself as a graphic designer. I am I am technically doing design work on paper, whereas I'm doing the imagining and I imagine how a graphic designer thinks without even knowing. And I sit down and I write notes. I imagine that they write notes. I imagine that they do sketching, which is what we actually do in design. So without even knowing what designers do, I imagined it, right? Okay. Next thing, I finished college. I have $1,000 left in my bank account. I go on eBay and I buy a Mac. So I buy a computer like John Black, the graphic designer that I contacted, said to do. Right? I buy a computer with as much software as possible on it. I reach out to the owner on eBay and say, "Hey, man, I'm trying to get into graphic design. Are there fonts on there? I know there's a thing called fonts. Do you have any fonts?" Right? And so he says, "You know what? I'm going to hook you up. I'm going to leave everything on there." So he literally left every piece of software he had. I had photo from day one. I had Photoshop, I had Flash, I had Adobe Illustrator, and I had thousands of typefaces and fonts. Great, great. So I had everything I need from day one. And it wasn't even a real Mac, it was a Mac clone. So what I did was got computer, got used computer off eBay, right? But an important thing I did was I reached out and talked to that person. I put out into the world, this is what I want. So we want to make sure that we are um, honestly stating what we want out into the world. Put it out there. Say, this is why. This is what I want. This is all the money I have left. Okay. So I get the computer. And what I start doing then is just playing with things. Another thing I do is I go on the internet and I find, I guess in the early 2000s, there aren't blogs yet. I find portals. So I start bookmarking graphic design portals. And what happens is that the portals become my daily coffee. I get up in the morning, I get up at like 9 a.m., get up, get dressed, sit down in front of my computer, fire it up, and start browsing the portals. And all the portals are just curated lists of agencies and portfolios. So I know now I've learned that this world is based off of sites and portfolios, people posting their work and sharing their work. Great. So now I know what I have to build. I know that I have to build a portfolio, right? Portfolio. And I need to know. So for your purposes, and I'm gonna again recreate this for all of these examples here, right? I don't have to know anything about a TV network to show you how you can use this process to build yourself a TV network. But I've already thought through it. I've actually done it. I've actually I've actually imagined how that would happen. And I've created a path for a prospective client about how they could do that. Okay. So on bookmarking portals at this point, every day, maybe 20 links. So I have hours of sites to look through. So as I look through sites, again, I'm imagining myself as one of these sites. Okay, well, what if I had an agency? What would my site be? What would my agency be called? Right? I didn't know that. Well, you can't have an agency, and yeah, you have to have an office, and you have to go to Art Center, and you have to go to Otis, or you have to go to SCAD, or you have to go to MCAD, or one of these design schools. That there's some rule. So, what rules can we break? Right? What rules can we break? Often, we get our brain gets ossified with so many rules and so many laws. Should, could, supposed to. So all these shoulds, could, supposed to, have to. Anytime you see these, you need to banish them from your mind. We don't want to have any of this in our way because um, another important principle is that everything is made up. Everything is made up. There's a point in time where that design school didn't exist, and a human came and said, "We should teach this as a discipline." There's a time when the discipline didn't exist. There's a time when the, the what we call graphic design did not exist, and a group of people came by and had processes and had ideas, and they shared them, and it grew into what you call a discipline. That's what everything is. Everything is made up. I don't want to say everything is fake. Everything is made up. The Pulitzer is made up. The Emmys are made up. The Oscars are made up. Right? How we build our homes are made up. There's a time where people tried to figure things out, and things worked and didn't work. And what worked, people kept compiling what worked, and that became a discipline. A discipline is simply a list of things that work. But somebody got to that list by doing a bunch of things wrong, right? So that's how we want to think. Everything is everything is made up. Okay. So as I'm bookmarking portals, I'm looking at kind of work, and I'm deconstructing it in my mind. How did they do that? Why does that work? Right? So why does that work? And how did they do that? So I'm going learning design. As I'm learning design, I am trying to backwards engineer things I see, what I see, right? So I'm looking at an album cover, and I'm saying, how did they get that effect? So I'm literally trying to copy it. And in the process of copying, you you start to build your own list of tricks, right? So copy, build a list of tricks, and that's where disciplines come from. Building a list of evaluating movies, evaluating screenplays, um, optimizing sound for a concert hall. It's all experimentation. So we're experimenting, copying, and experimenting, trying things, messing up, making happy mistakes. And you're like, oh, that didn't turn out the way I expected, but oh, that actually looks pretty nice. And what people don't tell you is that a lot of design, a lot of creation happens that way, right? Happy accidents, right? As I'm building up my list, I'm developing me my own style and my own flavor, right? This list in my mind of techniques and tricks starts to compile as I start doing things. You have to start doing things first. There is no such thing as I have the qualification first. There is only doing things first. If you're seeking the qualification, that's external. You're concerned with what other people think. You have to be concerned with what you are learning and doing, and that's it. If you learn and do, the external will come to you. You'll get people coming to you. People will start asking you to help them with their design, right? It's like stone soup. When you start doing, other people show up and say, "Hey, um, I know you're just churning this bowl of soup and it's completely empty, but hey, if I put a potato in it and that guy puts an onion in it and that guy puts a piece of chicken in it, hey, we could have a bowl of soup and we could all share from it, right?" So it's all stone soup, right? And actually, stone soup. I'm gonna write that down. I'm gonna put that in concept. So copying, experimenting, and you copy what you like, right? It's easy to copy what you like, what resonates with you. So backwards engineer what I see. Note what resonates with you. Whatever resonates with you is yours, right? Another concept. Whatever resonates or triggers you positively or negatively is yours. It's from the world of ether, from the world of intuition. It's from God. Okay? It's yours. It's for you. Has your name on it. Whatever resonates with or triggers you is you. You slash yours. Okay? So you grab it and you take it. You see a piece of photography. You see if you see a scene in a film. Stop and look at it. Say, what's in there for me? What is that? Why am I triggered slash why does that resonate with me? What resonates with or triggers you is you, is a part of you. Okay. And naturally that extends to other people, right? If a person triggers you, there's something there that either bothers you or that you secretly want or that you are, but you don't admit it. Okay. Whatever, whoever resonates with or triggers you is you slash yours. Very important. From this, we can build everything. Okay. All right. So building a list, doing things, and I'm doing some tutorials. Yeah, fine. That's technical stuff. But really it's just from making making stuff. As you're doing tutorials, you're also making mistakes and you're finding things and you're making happy accidents as you do tutorials as well. So tutorials. I think I was doing Hillman Curtis's Flash design book. Flash design book. Tutorials. Tutor- Tutorials from books. All right. Another thing I'm doing, taking advantage of all the free resources. So I'm driving across town and going to a library in another city, and I'm checking out every design book I can find. So I'm going to the library and I am checking out maybe 5 to 10 books at a time. and I'm pouring through all these books. This is what I'm doing all day. I'm doing this all day as if I have a job. So I'm pretending I have a job, i.e., I'm spending 8 hours a day at least on learning, looking at graphic design, 8 hours a day. Great. So when you are committed to something, you have 8 hours a day to work on it. It's more interesting to you than watching TV. It's more interesting to you than TV, right? Um, Checking out every design book I can find, and I'm pouring through the books, and I'm noting what resonates with me. Doing the same thing, backwards engineering what I see and noting what resonates with me. All right. Then I'm putting together my portfolio. Did I delete portfolio? Portfolio. Let's see, 26 minutes in. I'm gonna try to finish this in an hour so you can get an idea of what I'm doing. And also, I don't want to spend an hour on each one of these. You'll get the gist of what I'm doing after about 10 sessions, and you'll start to see this list of concepts everywhere. Okay. And I'm creating my portfolio. And since I'm a graphic designer, I'm applying for jobs already. Apply, applying. I'm applying for jobs, right? And this portfolio is a fake portfolio. Is that made up? Creating, let's call it made up portfolio. All right. I'm creating this made up portfolio, um, and it's made up books, things that I love, books and album covers, right? If I loved movie posters, I'd make fake movie names and go and find graphics somewhere, right? Books and album covers. Yeah, let's see. I finished college in June. I'm hired in December. All right. So I spent 6 months doing this. 6 months. You could do it a lot faster because you have the internet is different now. you know, you can do a lot more. It's a lot easier to do networking, and I've learned a lot of things since then. So I can help somebody do this mm, in a month, right? It wouldn't take 6 months. It would take a month. So let's review. Not in any particular order. I'm backwards engineering what I see, and I'm figuring out, you know, how did they do that? I'm noting what resonates with me. I'm copying, experimenting. I'm coming upon happy accidents and building a list of tricks. Doing tutorials from books and also coming up with happy accidents, right? Happy accidents slash mistakes on purpose, mistakes on Lori Rosenwald has a great course called Mistakes on Purpose, where she actually has people just sit down with pencil and paper and start just doing things, right? Without any process, without any thought, just pure flow and pure intuitions. Very beautiful. Building a list of tricks, right? I don't know if it's the right way to do mm, gloss or to do or to do a or to do blurring. I'm doing it my way because with Photoshop with these tools, there's 10 ways you can do things, right? So my way of doing a drop shadow is doing that. My way of working with text with type is I do that, I do that, I do that. So tricks you're coming up with flows, with flows. You're stringing together actions, right? Nowadays, we call that a user flow, right? So actually, just say user flow, creating user flows. All right, I'm applying for jobs now. Um, at that point, I've learned enough to build my own website because I did a tutorial about Macromedia Dreamweaver. Back then, I was like 2000. So people were making sites with Dreamweaver, right? We didn't have modern web design standards yet. We didn't have Jeffrey Zoldman and CSS yet. But a couple years later, that comes in to the picture. So I'm applying for jobs, and I actually get interviewed at a local agency, tiny agency. So we are going to walk. We're going to take what to do. I took whatever work was offered, and it doesn't matter how short it is. You can mess up. You can do everything wrong, but just get hired or get some actual work. Get some work. If you think if you are going to feel bad because you think, oh well, they could have hired somebody who actually knows what they're doing. Well, that's not your concern, right? They should have maybe done a better job of vetting people, right? Right. Nobody asked me if any of this stuff, if any of these books or album covers were real. Nobody asked me that. They said, I like your portfolio, I like your style. And that's it. Right. So it took whatever job was offered. That's connected to a concept we get from Dr. Robert Glover, which is walk through open doors. If somebody comes to you and says, hey, I have some work, or I have something you can work on, even if it's not paid, you just take it. Why? Because work leads to more work, right? Walk through open doors because work leads to, um, actually, we should say more work. It leads to learning. Let me fix this. It leads to networking. You're building your group, because money and work comes from people, right? So anytime you are doing some work, you're meeting somebody. So there's networking. Anytime you take a class, this networking. Really, anytime you read a book, you're also networking. How is that? Okay. Anybody who puts out a book or puts out a blog or writes an article or who is active on social media, they you should take that as an invitation to email them personally and talk to them, right? So I have authors on my bookshelf that I've talked to because I read their book and then I go online. This is before LinkedIn. There's no LinkedIn yet. There's no Twitter yet. I find their site or I find their email in their book and I email them and I talk to them, right? They're just people, right? Concept. People are just people. Only difference is experience and time served. And that's it. That's the only difference between you and that agency owner is the amount of effort they put into it, the amount of hours. So watch this. Hours. So instead of watching TV and movies all day, right? I am I am pretending like I have a job and I'm giving myself projects. I'm making up projects, right? So I am making up. Everything is made up. Everything is made up. See that? All right. Making up projects for myself. You don't have to do spec work. You don't have to do work for a client for free. You just make something up. People are just people. Only difference, only difference is experience and time served. That's it. And if somebody meets with you, they can impart that experience to you in an hour. They could distill the learnings from 10 years of experience. And I've had this happen to me many, many times. People can impart something to you that takes you from takes your trajectory from here to here, and your work. You sit back down at your desk or down at your sketch pad, and your work goes through the roof because of one thing that they told you, one thing that they imparted to you. All right. So if anybody wants to get on a live stream, go ahead and put a comment. So if you're on YouTube, I'm on YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook right now. So if you put a comment somewhere, wherever you are, I'll give you the link, and you can come on. And if you have something that you want to work on, it doesn't have to be on this list, but if there's something in your life that you want to create, if you have a dream business or a project, um, or a career change, please go ahead and just ping me, and we can work on it, man. Let's see. If I click invite, I have a link. Oh, there you go. It says I can have up to 10 people on screen at once. All right. So if you want to get on, go ahead and get on. I am about 37 minutes in, so I have about 20 minutes left. But if somebody gets on, I will definitely work with you. What I'm trying to do is be in dialogue as long as possible. So I have a goal for myself that for the next 30 days, I want to be in dialogue with as many people as possible. And I'm going to be in dialogue with myself, and somebody is going to watch this video later. So it doesn't have to be at the same time. It doesn't have to be at the same time. So here, see, I have graphic design, and the next 30 days, I want to get on at least 10 times, um, and show you my process, and show you how I operate, and show you how I think. Okay. So 6 months, I get hired. Now, I'm only there for a month and I get fired. Okay. Does that count? Yes, it counts. You put that on your resume. You put anything that you've done, you put that on your resume. You put that on your portfolio. Okay. And it wasn't because of design, it was because of other issues that I had at the time of not paying attention and not being forthcoming and saying, hey, um, I need to clarify that. Like, it was really not knowing how to work because I'd never worked with people yet in a creative capacity. So really, it's the process after that is learning how to work, how to actually work out a place and actually get projects handed to you and get clarification, right? It wasn't the skills, it was the um, work style. There was no work style because I hadn't really worked yet. So you have to you have to develop a little bit of a thick skin to do this stuff because you're going to face these kinds of hurdles. People are going to say, "Ah, you've never owned a restaurant. You've never worked at a restaurant. Why do you think that you can launch a restaurant?" I'm here to tell you that if you want to launch a restaurant, you can absolutely launch a restaurant because energy and who you're being attracts people. Energy attracts people. Passion attracts people. So if you can see how I'm talking to you right now, If you talk to somebody like that, if you look somebody in the eye and they know that you're deadly serious, um, and if you can keep going long enough, if you can keep your little reality reality distortion field, like what Steve Jobs did, your reality distortion field open long enough, you can do it. You may have to do go through 40 interviews, but you can do it. You can be like Colonel Sanders, and you can go through 100 different vendors before you find somebody who's willing to take a chance on you. But you can only get to that person number 100, that interview number 100, if you are committed to this is your thing. This is your thing and you love it and you would do it for free and you would do it for 8 hours a day when nobody asked you to. This is how we banish procrastination. This is how we banish lack of focus. This is how we banish lack of passion. If you don't have any of these in your job, it's because you have to admit at some point that you're doing the wrong thing. And maybe you did it for the wrong reasons. You did it for money. You did it because it's a stable job. You did it because it's hot now, like AI and machine learning and Bitcoin and blockchain are hot now. So you did it because you thought it would give you prestige. That's all external. What I declare myself to be is independent of externality, independent of external circumstances. And if you go out into the world like that, powerfully enough, that will resonate with people. So I got hired again, like 2 weeks later. See how that works? See how that works? And literally at double the amount of money without even trying. It just sort of plopped into my lap because I was out there as somebody who does graphic design, and somebody said, "Hey, do you know anybody who does web design?" Oh, Zay does design. I never done web design before, but I do now. Yeah, I do now, right? So this is a way of creating, right? W- When we say creating, we mean going from nothing to something, going from an idea that's something that's a vision in your mind. And when you have that vision in your mind and you start doing things, everything else gets sucked in. It's like a black hole. It's like gravity. I'm not trying to get esoteric with you, but part of it is your psychology just starts paying better attention to things. And when you are your authentic self, people pay attention. Have you ever tried to sell something, for example? Have you ever tried to sell something that you don't really care about? Sell a pair of shoes that you don't really care about? It's like, you don't want a pair of these, do you? Right? But if you come with this pen and say, let me explain to you how amazing this pen is. And you look at people in their eyes seriously, and you are dead serious about this pen. You believe in this pen. You love this pen, right? You'll kill somebody over this pen, right? If you're that serious, people say, who is that? Who is that person? Right? Why was Chef Gordon Ramsay when he launched in the U.S. with a U.S. version of Hell's Kitchen? Why was it so? Why 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 did it piss people off? You either loved him or you hated him. Why is that? Because there's a level of passion, and what would piss him off the most is that when you don't care, when you put something out that's half done, and you say, "Oh, it's all right, go ahead and put it out." Would you give this to your family if your family was sitting there? And he'd ask people that, right? Would you eat that? Why are you putting it out there, right? This is you. This is you. This bowl is you. Is an extension of you, right? And whoever resonates with or triggers you is you. So it goes to the quality of your work. It goes to the quality of your words. It goes to what you put out in the world. Okay. And people can sense that. Another human being on the other side of that can sense that. And they said, man, this guy loves this stuff. This is serious. I gotta talk to him because there's so little of that in the world because so many of us are seeking rent and we're seeking a mortgage and we're seeking stability, security, things that aren't real, right? But this energy is real, and you can see it, and you can see it when you get on customer service, when you go to the DMV, when you go to a restaurant, you can see who is into their thing and who's not, and who are people going to do business with. The person who's passionate about their thing. I said, "This is my thing, dude. I think about this at night." Right. When I was doing graphic design, I was doing graphic design all the time. I would go home and do graphic design. Right. If you don't go home and keep doing your job and or keep doing what you do at your job, that's not your thing, man. It's not your thing. You know. Maybe there's something else. We decide what we do sometimes for the wrong reasons. Yeah. We're trying to people pleasing, and I'm a master people pleaser. I'm a recovering master PhD people pleaser. I know all about that. It doesn't work. It's a path that leads you that there's nothing at the end of that. There's just sadness, right? So if any of this resonates with you or triggers you or pisses you off, send me a connection request and come and talk to me. Let's talk about it. Okay. So, this is a presentation of how I created myself as a graphic designer. Okay. Um, I think tomorrow I'm probably going to do, I'm going to how I transitioned into user experience. Very similar with a couple new things that I learned. Okay. All right. So I'm Zaid Hisham and peace out.